Hello everyone, Merlin's Manor here, and today I'm going to be talking about 10 games that are very portable. They're very small, so you can bring them along with you on trips easily. And I'm going to start out with one that my wife and I have been playing a decent bit lately called Trails. This is made by the same people that brought you Parks. It's got some similarities to it, but it's also its very own unique game. And this is a game that we've brought to the table several times already, even though it's a fairly new game. And basically you are going down a trail trying to pick up resources along the way that you can then use to get badges. And at the end of the trail and at the head of the trail, you're going to be trying to get those things by using the resources. There's also a place where you can spend a resource to get a picture, and you're trying to see birds along the way. The person that sees the most birds gets an extra 4 points. And so it's kind of a neat little game, and highly recommend Trails, especially if you enjoy Parks. You're probably going to enjoy this one as well because it's got some similar mechanics to it. Next game I want to talk about is one that my kids have been enjoying a lot lately, and that is Dungeon Attack. It's by a company called Attack Dice, and so if you want to check them out, you can go to attackdice.com and check them out. And basically you're going to have a bunch of dice. You start out with all these black dice here, which are regular monsters. In the first round you're going to go ahead and roll those, and anything that is a skull is going to be a kill. You only have so many that your person can take. Each person's a little bit different, ranging anywhere from 2 to 4, I think it is, amount of monsters that you can take in one turn, kill in one turn. And then you've got feet. Theirs are going to run away from you. You can choose where they run to unless you were assisting somebody else, and then you go ahead and send them back to the person they came from. And then you have swords. These are ones that are attacking you, but they only actually hurt you if you roll all swords on your turn. So the more dice you're rolling, the less likely that is to happen. So you're going to want to try and roll as many dice at once as you can. But of course, as you go through and take out more and more monsters, you're going to get down to just a few monsters left, and they're more likely to attack you. And then the second and third rounds, you're going to have these boss dice. And the bosses, they can't be defeated on the first roll. You actually have to re-roll them in order to defeat them, and there's different things that grant you re-rolls. And one of the things is if it lands on this for your first roll, you get to automatically re-roll it. Otherwise, you can use different powers that you have to re-roll and different things like that. So they're a little bit tougher to defeat because you basically either have to roll the skull twice or you have to have a re-roll of some sort and then get it on the second one. And there's only a 1 in 6 chance of getting that skull, whereas there's more chances of getting the other sides. And so that's a fun little game if you just like kind of a light kind of this roll a bunch of dice and see what happens type game. It's a great filler game, and my kids are constantly recommending it, so we have gotten it quite a few times to the table since I just bought it not too long ago at a convention I was at. So that's Dice Attack. Another game I just recently got, and this one I got as a door prize at the convention that I bought this other game at. Originally wouldn't have probably thought to get it otherwise, but yeah, it's actually a pretty fun game. It's called Friday the 13th, and you basically have 3 different sets that you are playing down, and whoever puts down the one that adds up to 13 points on that set collects all those. And you don't necessarily want to be collecting them because they are actually negative points at the end of the round unless you have the most of that set. If you have the most of that set, then you don't count any of it. And there's also some wild cards in there that you can use to put on the various sets. And the wild cards, if somebody gets them, they're automatic 2 points against them, whereas all the other cards are 1 point against you. And there's no way to mitigate those 2 points from the wilds. There's automatically going to be 2. Whereas the other ones, if you get the most of that set, then you don't count them. And so that's a fun little trick-taking game. If you enjoy trick-taking games, you might want to check this one out, Friday the 13th. Let's see, the next one I want to talk about, let's go ahead and talk about Doctor Who Fluxx. And really, all the Fluxx games are fairly similar. They have their own little kind of spins on it. And basically, this is kind of a game. It's a card game that you are putting down. You're picking up different cards, and you're trying to get them played to where you can get a win condition, and the win condition can change throughout the game because you have some cards that change the win condition. And so you may be collecting just the right thing to win the game right now, but then somebody will play a card that then changes the win condition. Now you need different cards put down to win the game. And then also the rules can change throughout the game in other ways. Like normally you draw one and you play one, but then you can increase that to drawing 2 or 3 or 4 and playing multiple cards. And so those are going to change all the way throughout. And there's just all kinds of different ways that the game changes up constantly. And so it's always in flux throughout the entire game. And so it can get kind of annoying at times when things change right when you need them to stay the same. Or at the same time, you may want to change it because it works perfectly for you to change the rules for a moment. And so it's a kind of interesting game. It's one of those games that can last 1 minute or it can last 30 minutes because things just keep changing up and nobody can quite win the game. And so it's very random in that sense. So if you like some randomness there, some chaos, then any of the Fluxx games are great. And we like Doctor Who, so we went with Doctor Who Fluxx. I'm going to save these ones for later because these are slightly bigger. Tiny Epic has a lot of games in their series that are pretty cool. It's a Tiny Epic Galaxies. You are going to be, you start out with certain, I think it's 4 dice, and you kind of add dice to your pool. You start out with 2 ships, and you kind of add those as you upgrade as well. And you are putting those ships out, trying to colonize different planets, being the quickest to colonize the planets that give you victory points along the way, as well as upgrading gives you victory points, and you are trying to get to the point where you are at 21 victory points, and that will cause the end game to occur. And then whoever has the most at the end of that round, including secret goals that you each have, you go ahead and you win. This also can be played solo. You won't have the secret missions in solo, but it's a pretty cool solo experience as well. Now, also part of the gameplay has a unique aspect to it, and it's called follow. And so basically, when you roll your dice, and whatever comes up, you can choose to activate those dice to do certain things, whether it's going to a planet, whether it's advancing on one of those planets, whether it's getting energy, getting a culture, whatever it is. And then when you activate that dice, somebody else can say, oh, I want to follow that action. So they get to spend a culture of theirs to follow your action. So sometimes you want to be careful about if it's not that good for you, you might not even want to activate a dice, and because it might be more beneficial for others to follow that action. And so you want to keep that in mind as well. It's kind of an interesting little game, and you don't have a whole lot of downtime between turns because everybody's watching to see what they might want to follow. And so that's pretty cool as well. The next one I want to talk about is going to be Tiny Epic Pirates. And this game, I've only played it at the 2-player count. I feel it's lacking a little something at 2 players. It seems like the game ends too fast before you get to, because you kind of have upgrades that you are doing to your ship along the way, and it feels like you don't have time to do the upgrades and the game's already over at 2 players. I feel like at 3 or 4 players it might last a little bit longer in that way, and you might be able to get a little bit more upgrades going on. It is fun even at 2-player count. It just seems like you don't get done as much as you would want to get done, and part of the game just seems wasted at that point. But it is enjoyable. You're basically going around collecting different goods, and then selling those goods to be able to get what you need to go find treasure and then bury it. There's ships that you can attack and take their goods, or you can go to different places and get goods. And you also have the Navy ship that's coming after you that you're trying to avoid. You can get into battles with others, and so it's just a very interesting kind of game. So that's Tiny Epic Pirates. Then there's Tiny Epic Zombies. Here you have different scenarios that you are going through, trying to accomplish, and you're taking out zombies as you go in this mall, and it's got quite a bit of replayability because you have so many different scenarios, as well as the board is set up differently every time because you shuffle these different cards into make up the mall, and so the board's going to look different. Different things are going to happen throughout the game, and so it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of replayability. It's a bit of a puzzly type game where you try and have to figure out the best way to go at times to avoid zombies, at times to go in there and attack zombies. You want to keep the zombies from getting into the middle and destroying the barricades, and every time when that happens, you will lose a person as far as a little meeple goes. And then if you lose too many of those, you lose the game. And so it's a very fun game. I know I'm not going into a lot of detail here, just kind of very brief overview there. It's right up there with Epic Galaxies. they're right close to each other in the way I like them. So that's that. Now let's get into some of these slightly bigger games. We got Codenames Duet. If you ever played Codenames, it's played similarly, except for you are on a team, and what you're doing is you have this big grid of different words, and each person has certain words they're trying to get the other person to guess, and certain words that are really bad to guess, you automatically lose the game if the other person guesses those words, and so you're trying to avoid them guessing those words and trying to make them guess the words that you are supposed to get. And you only have a certain limited amount of turns in order to do this, and so basically what you're going to do is you're allowed to say one word and a number based on how many relate to that word. And so, you know, if there's bat and bat and ball, you might say sports 2. And so they'll try and guess, oh, those 2. But then again, if there's a bat, a ball, and hockey, then you might not want to say sports. If hockey isn't one of the good words, you might try and have to figure out a different way to get that across, especially if that's one of the words they absolutely can't guess. Or you might just take a chance and see what happens. And so you have to try and figure that out. It's a little bit of a puzzly type game as to figuring out how you can most efficiently get your words guessed. And a lot of them aren't going to be quite so easy to coordinate as far as that goes, as what I just gave as an example. And so you might have to kind of stretch things a little bit in order to get as many things under that umbrella as possible. So that's a fun little quick game that you can play with 2 players. Another 2-player game that's very small and compact is 7 Wonders Duel. And this is the little brother for 7 Wonders. 7 Wonders plays 3+. This one plays at the 2-player count. And basically you are trying to build up your civilization by getting different cards that give you resources that then allow you to be able to pay for different buildings, science things, and different whatnot. Each card kind of has its cost, and you are getting where you can do that. And you're also building up wonders. They each give you a benefit when you build them, as well as victory points at the end. And so you are trying to get those built up by getting the right resources. And then anything you don't have the resources for, you have to pay gold to make up the difference. And the more resources your opponent has of that, the more it's going to cost you in gold. And so you kind of have to try and get those resources as much as possible at first, and then figure out when you're going to turn your focus towards victory points, different things like that. And so it's a very fun game. It's also got 3 different ways to win, and so you have to be very careful. The basic way is that the person at the end of the game that has the most victory points wins, but then along the way, if somebody advances the war track all the way to the other person's city, then that person wins automatically. It doesn't matter how many victory points. And then the other way is if a person gets 6 out of the different 7 different science tokens, or science tags, should I say, then that person wins the game automatically. And so you want to keep an eye on the tags that the other person is getting and try and mitigate that if they're getting too many of those by making sure you grab the ones they don't have. And so there's all kinds of different unique things to do along the way to try and ensure your victory. And the last one I'm going to mention is the more portable version of Ticket to Ride, and this is Ticket to Ride London. There's a few other portable ones out there as well. I know there's New York, and there's a few other ones in addition to that. This is the one that we have and that we've been playing. And so this is a great, fairly small game that you can take with you. And it plays similarly to Ticket to Ride, but it's a quicker game, it's smaller, and has a few differences to it. But it's right along those same kind of lines. And so if you enjoy Ticket to Ride, you probably like Ticket to Ride London, and you can take that along with you, various trips and different things. And so there you go. Those are 10 different games that are highly portable that you can take with you and play when you are going on trips, or just they just don't take up a lot of space either in your house if you want some of these more smaller games that you can have. And so I highly recommend all these games. Check them out and see what you think. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.